Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Sek, and with me, we've got John. He's the lead PO.
Hi, John here. Well, thanks very much for attending this open house. We are from Air Transport Management. Now, this slide essentially is to just talk about why Singapore is actually considered a global aviation hub. So probably the first impression you have for Singapore aviation is actually Changi Airport. Very nice, comfortable, very sexy. But it's actually going to be more than that. If you look at the entire economy of Singapore, is that we are actually strategically located in actually one of this region, and we have world-class infrastructure. We have a very, very supportive government, CAAS, the authority. We have Singapore Airlines. Right, Singapore Airlines is actually one of the most famous brands coming out from Singapore. So that's the reason why we're actually going to be here, because at SIT, we are the only universities that actually have a full-time aviation management course. What we actually aspire to do is to train the leaders, the talents, to get them ready for the aviation industry in Singapore or even globally.
So he spoke about the economy itself, and if we go into the trade itself, the next slide pretty much tells you who are some of the industry players and the partners, right? But before we got here, that creates a context and a nice environment for them to thrive. So you have the airport, which I like to call an infrastructure, but some of my colleagues think that, look, it's not an infrastructure, it's something fancy, otherwise the planes cannot land, right? Then we have the carrier, that what John had said, local carrier, and then we've got aviation sector. So all of this adds to this players that are in partnership with the program, specifically because the program has a selling point in terms of an 8-month internship. I shouldn't be saying internship. My bosses are here. We call it Integrated Work Study Program, right? So that's a fancy term for internship, where you are treated like a full-time employee, and we will get Novia to share a little bit later, as well as Joshua. But with each of these players, some of them you will see, it's visible, but some of them, they are not visible. For example, Amadeus, Star Alliance, Dinata, these are important players in the global distribution system, ground handling. Without all of that, besides seeing the metal and the infrastructure, these are the ones that will make the whole entire service effective.
Well, in fact, if you actually look at it, a lot of people just think that aviation is purely just about an airline or a ground handler like SETS or Dinata, or even just Changi Airport. But you'll be surprised that on the IWSP, also called the internship, we do actually send out students who go for a lot of other companies. And this is actually not a true representation because there are much, much more companies here. Take, for example, a leasing company, BOC Aviation, GE Capital. So these are actually financing companies. They're deal solely with the leasing of aircraft. There will be consulting company. So the more familiar names like McKinsey, Bain. These are actually the companies that do also actually take in air transport students to be actually their perm staff. A lot of technology. In fact, I was just at Star Alliance just a couple of days ago. They are actually booming. They just moved their their global HQ from Frankfurt to Singapore. And in fact, they're actually running out of space already. They're going to move to a new office because they're aggressively expanding. This came directly from the CEO of Star Alliance. So COVID-19 is a bad news, but what's actually good news? We survived. We are sitting here. And you actually look at the news, look at the industry itself, we rebound very, very fast. In fact, as per end of the 2023, we have recovered basically to 90% of the traffic volume in 2019. Pretty optional, because if you look at it, most of the countries opened their border only in beginning of 2023. So within a span of 12 months, we have actually achieved 90% of what we have done in 2019. So the industry is actually still full of promises, but okay, I have a tendency to actually paint a better picture because I used to be a salesperson. So this industry is awesome. The thing is that, but we're actually also looking for certain unique qualities of the people who actually want to join it. This is a global business. You are always dealing with people from different culture, different business environments. So you need to be able to articulate or communicate well, not just by not just oral, but also written communication. You must actually have the ability to work in a team. the collaborations, especially if your teammates are actually made up of people from some place sitting in Europe or USA. So these are things that you need to be very comfortable about. But of course, if you actually enjoy this kind of challenging, fast-moving environment, I strongly urge you to actually join the aviation industry.
So the program itself, as what Joshua has said earlier, this is the first and only full-time transport management program at this point in time. Right? It is closely developed with the authority, CAAS, Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore. We look at a couple of facets in terms of operations, management, and business. So that's what we want to give the skill sets of to you. Subsequently, each of this is clearly the list is not exhaustive. You've got the airports, the airlines, consultancy firms, regulators, business units, freight handling agencies, as well as technology firms. This list will grow, as what John had said earlier, because the industry is not just what you see in terms of metal or infrastructure. There's more beyond that. 3 points. I guess number one is it is industry relevant because we have regular communication with the industry, give us feedback about what needs to be done, what needs to be changed. And then we've got the 8-month integrated work-study program, fancy term for internship. And then we've got specialized modules. We'll go into the modules in a bit. In the team itself, right, you're not just going to be exposed to boring academic stuff, because this is not going to be static, as the name implies. So amongst the team, we have people with engineering background. We have also a few other colleagues from around the world. They will visit the school regularly. We've got someone from States, from Purdue University. His name is Vladimir. He's Ukrainian, but he's an established scholar in the field. And then we've got a couple of other folks who have Asian experience as well in the trade. So you're not going to be shortchanged. What I was trying to tell you, to try and highlight to you what the profile of the faculty would be. So this is the current semester, the current trimester, pardon me, in terms of the different pillars of the subjects and the modules that you're going to be learning. You do realize that the underlying of air transport management is still business. It's business, right? Transactional, capitalism. Then you go into air transport management. So that's pretty much the principles of what happens in the air transport industry before we delve into the airlines and the airport. All right, so this is the current structure as of now. It will go through for about 8 semesters, 7 trimesters. And subsequently, you'll go on to your IWSP.
Modules-wise, it's very broad, but some of them are very specific as well. So you really get to learn a lot, and I would say from one of the best few professors around. Yeah, so these are people who actually really take in feedback, and the course is relatively new. I'm in the third batch. I'm the third batch only, so they really do take in a lot of feedback, and they really do alter their module profiles or whatever accordingly based on whatever feedback that we give. Sometimes they would assess as well, and they would explain the rationales behind why are they doing things the way they do, which really gives us a better perspectives on like the whole picture as a whole.
So IWSP, I'm actually with Singapore Airlines Cargo. Yep. So day to day, looking after or monitoring my aircraft moving around the entire world. Yep, not just Singapore. Managing any disruptions, keeping the schedules on time, and not to mention keeping cargo moving through Singapore. There's a lot. Most of our cargo actually is transshipment cargo going through Singapore, and as per COVID, it has sort of revealed also just how lucrative the cargo industry is, and so always exciting, especially towards when I started the internship towards the tail end of COVID. Cargo was still very much profitable and quite an exciting place to be. at that point of time in the airline industry. Yeah. So, and also on top of managing the operations, I also focus on something that isn't so that people often overlook is the management of the ULDs, the unit load devices. So your containers, your pallets that you load, your own checked baggage and also cargo as well. There's also quite a big operation, and I spent about 5 months managing the stock, make sure that airports don't run out of these containers.
Program at this point in time, over the last 5 batches, we're looking at about 50 to 70 students. Yeah. Moving forward, we'll probably be looking at that range as well. Typically, after the first trimester and the second semester, we get a lot of dropouts. Yeah. So that's not very nice because from your perspective, you lose your subsidies, you utilized it, you consumed it, and you don't see it through it. But I guess also it's good that you know what you don't want earlier, but come in with your eyes open wide. If you are ready for this, have a go. But if you are not sure, maybe wait a bit, get a job, experience how it is like first before you come into this. Because you don't want to be dragging your feet to school every day.
The course is good, but itself is actually tough. The rationale behind is that working outside is actually not going to be easy as well. So we're actually putting you through this training to train you early before you actually step into the real world, right? The assessment that we have, a lot are actually on written assessment, because as graduates, you need to know how to write, okay? We advocate a lot on teamwork. You need to actually work together with people from different backgrounds. So this is actually where we're actually coming from. But again, okay, well, even the admission itself, everyone who are actually applying, if you're shortlisted, you have to come for an interview with the faculty. So it doesn't mean that we just look at the result. We look at your personal statement. We want to actually see you face to face to understand where you're coming from, what motivates you. Why are you so unique? We only have a very small cohort, anything between 50 to 70 people. You need to be actually unique enough.
Job prospects, I think you can hear so Joshua is SIA Cargo. Some of his peers are at Changi Airport, right? Some of his other peers is at Bank of China Leasing, right? We've got some other graduates who are at maintenance firms. Some have obviously as well joined the non-airline industry, because a lot of these are transferable skills, right? You've got business, you run P&L, you run the EBTA. It's transferable. It's not just the industry itself. We're not going to try and arrest everything because it's impossible. We are always lagging in terms of what change is, right? So what we've done is we managed to sort of tone it down a little bit. For example, airline finance. Instead of asking you to go and run a P&L and trying to balance the L&A and the equity, we sort of look at it such that you understand and imply from the numbers what it's telling you. And then it helps in decision making. We're not going to ask you to go and crunch it because we know this crowd is not that. We've overseas internship program, right? We are in discussion with an ASEAN country and firm to see how we can make this happen, right? No promises because institutional inertia is deep. So there's a lot of regulatory that we have to overcome as well. And when we talk about positions in the workplace, it depends on industry needs. So cyclical events will not do us any good, unfortunately. So it really depends. Beyond the internship, program-wise, we are also exploring exchange programs with other esteemed universities. All right, so that's in the works right now. You may stand to benefit subject to the food chain's approval.